kayak?
Hammock. How bad is the noise? Is it horrendous?
I think it's fine as long as you're talking. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I'll still hit an unmute button here. The
Awesome.
place where the sunshine is right next to the fence by the road, so you do what you can.
Yeah.
But
And Claire, you actually came for Bible study. Welcome. Very big welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm also a little curious about. Thank you for praying for me. You said you were praying
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah. I've been praying
wondering,
for you all week.
and what is it you pray for as regards, my welfare?
Well, I don't know. I don't know enough about you, so that's hopefully that's what I'm trying to get at. I don't know. When
Oh,
there's
okay.
conflict, we oftentimes, in my opinion, we don't know what the conflict is, and so yeah, that's part of it.
Okay, fine. I'm sure we'll understand each other a bit better after
Yeah,
this Bible study class.
yeah. So we're going to be in chapter 8 of Second Kings. Yosef, you are also joining us. Welcome, welcome. Something gone wrong? How were you with us?
Yeah, no, I keep getting sick, and I'm just, yeah. Well, I'm not even trying to work today. I don't know. Yesterday, if you guys saw me on stream, I was in bed, but today I'm at least upright.
Okay.
So I'm here.
Well, we're going to tell a story from Second Kings. We're going to get to at least one story that's very mafia-ish. We'll just say that. How about that? So, Matt, I think you'll be able to read for us. I don't think that's going to be a problem. So, would you please read for us the passage?
I would love to. And if it is a problem, just let me know. I can go inside. I just can't bring the hammock inside.
Oh, it's a beautiful hammock. I want you to live your best life while you join us for Bible study. Go ahead.
All right. So, now Elisha had said to the woman whose son he had restored to life, "Arise and depart with your household and sojourn wherever you can. For Hashem has called for a famine, and it will come upon the land for 7 years." So the woman arose and did according to the word of the man of God. She went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. And at the end of the 7 years, when the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, she went to appeal to the king for her house and her land. Now the king was talking with Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, saying, "Tell me all the great things that Elisha has done." And while he was telling the king...
Yeah, let's pause there for a second. So, we've never learned this woman's name. She had her son died, and the prophet rose him from the dead, and she gets to know that the famine has happened. It's difficult to know about when this is supposed to happen in the timeline.
Well, it's clear from the previous story that the beginning of this happens before that previous story where the famine's already, like, they're in the middle of the famine, right?
Right.
Actually, right. The previous two stories. So, what we didn't know before, but the text has never told us, is that Elisha knew about the famine beforehand.
He already knew.
That. But it turns out he knew the whole time, and despite that, he told at least one person. Now this is very similar. This is super similar to the Eliyahu story. Remember, if we talked about how each story in Eliyahu and Elisha has a parallel. So if you remember, this is what happened earlier. Eliyahu did go, and he tells someone, that the famine's coming, and or the drought is coming in his time.
And it was a woman. It was a widow.
It was a woman. Now that was 3 years, and this is 7 years. They're not exactly the same, but these are parallel stories. So this is back in time. He wanted to help the same woman who he was helping earlier. Great, okay, and he had this foreknowledge. We didn't know about that before. It creates a little bit of dramatic irony. We can talk about how his knowledge. We now have to go back to the previous two stories or whatever it is and read how his knowing about the famine might have affected his decision making, because we didn't know that before when we read those stories. So there's a lot we could go back and unpack. There's also a clear parallel here with the story of Ruth, right? So again, the woman goes, there's a famine, she leaves her land, she comes back. And the other big thing is that last we heard about this king, which was at the end of 2 chapters ago, right? He I pointed this out last week too, right? Like he wanted to kill Elisha. Now, but then he wasn't really being serious about it because like his soldiers were interacting with Elisha and clearly not trying to kill him. But he said he wanted to kill him. He was so upset with him. He was upset with him for like I thought for a really real reason. Like this guy, like people were dying and starving in the streets, and the king was upset with God, and Elisha represents God, and like, and clearly, and he knew about the famine beforehand. It's even worse, right? Like, why is God allowing this to happen? And the king, I thought, was legitimately upset. Other people disagreed with me, fine. But yeah, now he's like, now after like seeing that Elisha like predicted what was going to happen to the death of his guard, the captain of the guard, or that Elisha's God made the miracle of the Assyrian army leaving, right? Like suddenly he's like much more interested, and he's like, okay, maybe I misunderstood God. Maybe I need to, and this guy and his representative. Maybe I actually need to hear more because I clearly like. It wasn't saying that he was totally wrong. Like he can still be upset with God, right? But like there's clearly something here where he's had a change of heart, and now he's trying to understand. And instead of going to Elisha directly, he goes to Gehazi, which itself is also super interesting because we know that Gehazi has already proven, like he represents Elisha, but he also doesn't, and he has like, and he has like some problematic issues, right?
Yeah.
But the king probably doesn't know that, right? The king doesn't know that Gehazi is a not loyal. Whatever.
It also seems to me symbolic, like the ultimate end of all of this stuff, all the disobedience and the not listening to the prophet, is going to be exile and wandering. So the idea that Elisha says to this woman, "You're going to wander, you're going to go into other lands and all this other stuff, and you're going to come back and have to plead for your land back." That is also the story of the nation as a whole. Like that's a bigger story. It's not just this little story. Like we've talked about this before, where there's people that are in one way or another fulfilling the nation, right? And I think this woman is like this idea of the upset. She goes out of the land. She has to wander for a while, and then she comes back home.
Yeah, we also, the other thing is, it's weird that she's going to the king for help. Like, where's her husband? One would have thought, if we talked about the previous story, we talked about, that there's this idea that, like, she's somehow married below her station. Her husband's a lot older than her. There's some disconnect in their marriage. We had all these conversations earlier. Something's going on there. Her husband seems to have died. Like, he's not in this story. She's the one who's going to the king. He's not mentioned again. This, again, is another Ruth parallel, right? Where, Naomi, she's parallel more to Naomi than Ruth, but Naomi, her husband dies during the famine in the other land, and she comes back and she's destitute. But here, in theory, right, I think what the comparison here is, in theory, there is now a king in the land. This isn't the time of Judges. Like, there should be law and justice, and she should be able to go to the king and get her lands back. And we're going to find out if that's true or not. Like, has this king who's had this change of heart, who's, like, now, like, maybe interested in God and his prophets, like, is he going to actually uphold justice and be the king that, that should have been, and that comes from Boaz, right? Like, he's literally, like, he's a descendant of Boaz and Ruth, and, like, does he have the Boaz qualities of kingship that we expect?
Excellent. Thank you for that setup. Does anyone have anything else they want to add for this little introduction?
Yes, so much that I don't understand.
Always. For someone so knowledgeable, you claim to not understand a lot.
It's not knowledgeable. It's just that I read the previous chapter. So the old man has died. So it's happening after the previous chapters. So Gehazi is a leper. He's all white as snow. And we already know that that city of Samaria, they don't like lepers so much. They are constricted to the gates of the city. They're not allowed in. And yet the king is consulting with the leper. And we know that Elisha was sitting normally with the old people. He was sitting with the aristocracy, with the wise people. Why isn't the king consulting the wise people, but just the leper?
Maybe Yoav, maybe Gehazi was among the lepers that told everyone about the salvation. We don't know
Yes.
what happened to him.
So
We
that
don't know
is
please
that is
tell
the
me
mid.
that. Yeah,
That's the midrash. Yeah, the
That's
midrash is that
gotta
he's
be-
one of the four lepers.
it's so interesting because that's a perfect example of what midrash is. Midrash is one of those things that you go, hey, maybe, and the midrash goes, yeah, yes, yes, maybe.
Yes,
Yes.
and yes,
Yes,
and
and right. Because what happens? Gehazi wasn't in the previous story, right? Elisha was, the king. He was in the city. Where was Gehazi in that story?
Yeah.
He had been. He was cast out. He was no longer in a relationship with Elisha, and yet then they save the city, and it is implied at the end of that story that they're allowed back in the city because they saved the city, and people realize like they're not to be as feared or whatever cast out. And now those guys are actually like in court, and now they've been brought in, and the king hears like, oh, I hear that you leper who just saved my city. I hear you used to work with Elisha. Like maybe you have like an independent perspective because like tell me about this guy. Like, do you think do you think I should bring him back in and trust him and whatever? Are these miracles really great? Right. So like it kind of closes the circle on that narrative, which is cool. I don't like. Again, it's not in the text. Not all of that's in the text, but the midrash picks up on it and sort of.
But there's little things that have been left that make you ask questions. Because if you just read this, if you read this chapter on its own, you wouldn't get any of that stuff. You have to see it in connection with that.
And I haven't finished with this one sentence yet.
Okay.
And not to Claire. You see, us Jews, we take one sentence and we can talk the whole hour about that one sentence. Okay, so she's going to the Philistine because there's anger in the country. Yes, in Samaria, on the mountain, in the north. And Israel is in the north. So she's going to the Philistines, which are the plains on the edge of the desert in the south. And there is no famine. Normally, there's more rain in the north than in the south of Israel. Just look at the map. So somehow the weather has turned around, and there's more rain in the south than in the north. Okay.
You have also the coast, right? The Philistines have more trade. They have access to more food through trade. And it's also important to know when Eliyahu, when he fled during the famine, the woman he talks to, that's also a coastal city. He's up by Tyre and Sidon in that story, right? He's I can't remember which town, but one of the little towns by Sidon. And like again, the coast can survive famine or drought in a way that people inland cannot.
Fine. So now I expect after so many years, the Philistine to be strong and Israel weak, especially since they are constantly bothered by Aram, by Syria. And I would expect chapters talking about the Philistine rising again against Israel and gaining ground. And I think what is going to happen is the other way around. Okay, open questions. I will shut up.
Good. Claire, you unmuted for a second. Do you want to say anything?
Yes, I unmuted because I heard my name mentioned. But it seems to me that the Book of Kings is just a list of the terrible, terrible kings that the Jews had. It's just a list of terrible government. So I looked at the Book of Judges, but apparently it wasn't much better then.
Right.
Joseph, just give me 1 second. I do want to respond to that first, if that's okay. Which is that Elisha appears in the Quran as a prophet as well, but there's no narratives in the Quran talking about his life, and yet it also within the Quran speaks about how Allah revealed the Torah and the Psalms, or sometimes called the writings, but for this reason, I think that it acknowledges some of the stories within the Bible. So if you want to know those stories for those prophets, which are acknowledged within the Quran, the only place you're going to find them is First and Second Kings.
Yeah, except that also, I mean, Claire will tell you, right? Like, Islam does not accept the version necessarily that we have as uncorrupted, and that's like
I understand that, but any version,
anyway,
the oldest version is this.
I want to answer Claire, or to point to Claire that we have two books, as Yon God said. We had two books talking about the same time. We had the book they're reading now, and there is Chronicles. And there were, it seems to me at least, there were two warring parties in the country, two political viewpoints. We are now reading the viewpoints of the prophets, who are very much opposed to the kings. And if we read Chronicles, I would expect to hear a more favorable account of the kings and less favorable to the prophets.
Excellent. That's basically what I was going to say. Yeah, Chronicles. Now, some people take the other view. They think that Kings is the more accurate position, and Chronicles is government polemic and PR, and like pro, especially Judaic kingdom stuff. And there's reason to believe that Chronicles, its core text, though it was added to later, its core text seems to be based on the archives, like the official archives of the Kingdom of Judah. So then there's a bunch of extra speeches and stuff and genealogies added to it later. But yeah, and so the question is, like, which is more accurate, Chronicles or Kings? Generally, kind of from an academic perspective, an academic Bible, we take both narratives. Plus, there's a whole bunch of prophets. Isaiah overlaps with a big chunk of Kings and actually has a couple almost exactly the same chapters. So you can compare those two because they're not exact. There's a couple differences. Amos, so all these prophets also overlap with the things happening in Kings. So people can do actually a 3-way or 4-way, whatever, comparison between Chronicles, Kings, and the prophetic texts to kind of reconstruct things. That also is really useful is this time period, really starting with Elisha on, is where we start having archaeology. So we can actually look at enough archaeological data points to really tell us what is going on in Israel. Are there really cities like this? What are the architectures? Where are the locations? In ways that we couldn't really do in the earlier narratives in Kings or Judges. Judges is like a mess archaeologically. There's no evidence at the time of Judges that's really survived. That can really allow us to differentiate between Jewish and non-Jewish settlements beyond lack of pig bones or something. But
also we what was said earlier, people were asking, it is not, Elisha is not his stories don't appear in Chronicles. If you want the narratives of what occurs with the prophets, how God is working in this time, it's going to be there. And I mean, the other thing, this is a big difference between having read the Quran myself, the entirety of it. The Quran is a series of sermons. It is not a series of narratives. And the Bible is really, really rooted in narrative in a way that the Quran is not. It just doesn't tell stories. But besides Yusuf, Yusuf is the most extensive story. The Joseph story is the most extensive narrative in the Quran. But the rest of it is just these little tiny bits.
I'm sorry. There was one last thing. It was just, if you look at the archaeology record and at what historical documents and things we have from Assyria and other neighboring nations, you would never think that the northern kingdom of Israel was a bad place. The northern kingdom of Israel comes off as very economically successful, growing, helping its people. Outside of the book of Chronicles and Kings, the northern kingdom actually seems like an awesome place to live and that they have good government. What's really interesting about these books is that they're the things that introduce us. I mean, of course, we came across these books much earlier before the archaeology was known, but the books are the only source to say that actually something was deeply wrong with these governments, and they weren't as good, idyllic, economically successful places. At the same time, when you look at those same archaeological records, it looks like Judah, even when Jerusalem is built in the United Kingdom and stuff, looks like a backwater. It looks like a not particularly prosperous in whatever place. And there it's much more interesting in some sense, because there it's the Book of Kings is still pretty anti-Judah, despite in theory, caring about a Davidic dynasty and Messiah and all those things. Like it just doesn't, like it doesn't think that people are living up to those standards there. So like, no wonder they're kind of downtrodden and not doing very well. On the other hand, the Book of Chronicles is the one there that says like, actually, like those guys are doing great, and like, their size and whatever does not speak to actually their success, and they should be given a lot more credit than we usually do. So there is these kind of like weird, we have to take both sources with like some grains of salt. But together they really do give us an interesting picture of what's going on, in addition to the archaeology and the history.
Okay, I want to jump back into the text, but before I do, I want to give everyone a fair shake. So Claire, can I give you 30 seconds to respond to it? You can say whatever you want for 30 seconds, and we won't respond to it. I'm mature enough that if I don't agree with what you say, that's fine. We'll move on. If it's not revealed later in the text, I'll just let it hang. So would you, 30 seconds, go ahead, Claire.
I actually don't have anything to say other than what I said about the Book of Kings being a chronicle of bad kings. But thank you for giving me this opportunity.
No problem. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to throw in there from your canoe? It really looks like a canoe from my perspective.
No, I'm good at this time. I think the ground has been pretty well tread at this point, so ready to move on.
Okay, awesome. Ian, do you want to throw anything else in?
I'm all set.
Okay, awesome. Then let us.
And Kirk is chopped liver.
Kirk, you never want to mention. You just want to read. You are here to read the text. I respect you. I like you. Do you want to say anything? Because what you normally do, I'm just going to say it, is you tell Yosef about how you want to talk to him about something completely unrelated to this stream. So
I'm just pulling your leg, but I actually did want to ask if I could.
Yes, you are the one to read right now, Kirk. Go ahead. Verse 5.
And while he was telling the king how Elisha had restored the dead to life, behold, the woman whose son who he had restored to life appealed to the king for her house and her land. And Gehazi said, My lord, O king, here is the woman, and here is her son whom Elisha restored to life. And when the king asked the woman, she told him. So the king appointed an official for her, saying, Restore all that was hers, together with all the produce of the fields from the day that she left the land until now.
Perfect. Okay, so Yosef, you were saying that this is trying to show that things are actually operating semi-properly? Was that the point you were trying to make?
Yeah, that things, like, at least for now, the king seems to be in a good place, and he's reformed. Here's kind of this interesting thing with the double play on the words, right? So they keep stressing Elisha restoring her son to life, and now her property is being restored to her, right? So there's a clear parallel there in the Hebrew and English.
Okay.
Now, question, what produce of the field? There was a drought. She was out because there was none.
So the drought's over. That's why she's back, right?
Okay, but there's nothing to restore.
Well, her land. You still want the land.
Okay, the land, yes. The land, yes.
Yeah, that's what field here is. We're talking about the property. Someone's kind of made a claim on her property because she hasn't been there for 7 years, and she's saying, no, like, it's my property. I want it back.
Fine.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else they want to throw in before we get into a much cooler story as it continues?
Just that again on the comparisons to Ruth and Naomi, the fact that she shows up right as they're telling her story is very much a Ruth and Naomi. Now, it just so happened that they randomly found their way here at the right time in the right place. It's very kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge Providence from Ruth.
That's good. Yeah. Within the biblical narrative, and we just passed Purim. Within the biblical narrative, we get exactly what you're saying. The wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you pay attention, you know that God is operating all throughout this text, whether or not his name is mentioned. And yeah, that's good.
Wait, one more question. Just going back to Gehazi, potentially the leper. The previous story where Elisha's servant has his eyes open and he sees the fiery chariots on the hillside. Is that one also unnamed but potentially Gehazi?
Everyone's unnamed in that story except for Elisha. No one else gets
Okay.
a name, even the king that we know the name of. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway.
Okay. Well, you know what, Jess? Welcome.
Thank you.
Jess, I know you enjoy reading. I know you are extremely literate. Would you be able to read?
Yes.
for
Where
me,
are we
please?
at?
Now, Elisha at the top of the page.
Oh, we're just at the top. Man,
Yeah.
you're set up. Okay.
Yeah.
Now Elisha came to Damascus. Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, was sick. And when it was told him, the man of God has come here, the king said to Hazael, take a present with you and go to meet the man of God and inquire of the Lord through him, saying, shall I recover from this sickness? So Hazael went to meet him and took a present with him, all kinds of goods of Damascus, 40 camels' loads. Holy crap. When he came and stood before him, he said, your son Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, has sent me to you, saying, shall I recover from this sickness? And Elisha said to him, go say to him, you shall certainly recover. But the Lord has shown me that he shall certainly die. And he fixed his gaze and stared at him until he was embarrassed.
Okay, sorry. Let's pause 1 second
audios.
there. This is one of my favorite little bits. Is that is he going to be okay? And the guy just stares until he feels embarrassed. The staring until he feels embarrassed is an amazing detail, and we'll see why in a second. You shall certainly recover, but the Lord has shown me that he shall certainly die. So he's sick. Is he going to get better? Yeah, he'll get better from the sickness. So okay, read
But
again.
he shall certainly die.
Hold on.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Who remembers who Hazael is? Who's been here since 1 Kings?
I don't remember.
Yeah? 1 Kings 19. Hazael is the guy that Elijah told would eventually be the king of Aram, but is being translated here as Syria, whatever. But he's supposed to be the king. And then it doesn't happen for many years later. It's going to happen now. But we're actually getting a fulfillment of an Elijah prophecy from however many, I don't remember how many chapters ago, 20 chapters ago.
Right. Is that the 3 guys Eliyahu's told to anoint and Eli anoints one?
Yeah. I think so. Hold on, I'm pulling up my 1 Kings. You go back to 1 Kings 19, in the middle of that chapter, I think.
Because the other one is Jehu in
No,
2 Kings
yeah,
10.
so yeah, exactly. God says to Eliyahu, return to your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and you shall come and anoint Hazael to be king over Aram, and Yehu, son of Nimshi, you shall anoint to be king over Israel, and Elisha, son of Shaphat, from Aval Micholah, you shall anoint to be a priest beneath you, right? So literally that's Elisha, right? So you're going to anoint Elisha to be the next, prophet, the next prophet, and you're going to anoint Hazael. So we've had 2 of the 3 kind of become kings, and now we're going to have and in some ways, this is why this is part of the same chapter, David, I think, is because the guy who Eliyahu anoints to become king has finally become the king he was supposed to be.
It's connected with the previous story in the previous time period.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get the part 3 with Hazael becoming king of Aram.
Wow.
Okay, so we're gonna continue in it. It's gonna be, things are about to get awesome. I promise you that. Okay. Okay.
Can I keep reading?
Yes. Yeah. Can you read from? Actually, read from. Shall I recover from this sickness? Because that's all related. So right
Okay.
from here.
Your son Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, has sent me to you, saying, shall I recover from this sickness? And Elisha said to him, go, say to him, you shall certainly recover. But the Lord has shown me that he shall certainly die. And he fixed his gaze and stared at him until he was embarrassed. And the man of God wept. And Hazael said, why does my Lord weep? He answered, "Because I know the evil that you will do to the people of Israel. You will set on fire their fortresses. You will kill their young men with the sword and dash in pieces their little ones and rip open their pregnant women." And Hazael said, "What is your servant, who is but a dog, that he should do this great thing?" Elisha answered, "The Lord has shown me that you are to be king over Syria." Then he departed from Elisha and came to his master, who said to him, "What did Elisha say to you?" And he answered, "He told me that you would certainly recover." But the next day he took the bedcloth and dipped it in water and spread it over his face until he died, and Hazael became king in his place.
So this is the Mafia Hit portion of it. He goes back. He was to find out if the king was going to be okay, and the king says, "Am I going to be okay?" And he says, "Yeah." He said, "You're definitely going to recover from the sickness." So then he does the old. So we don't know the meaning of the Hebrew word for bedcloth. It's unknown, but it's kind of an image. If you see the image I picked for this, where he takes a pillow and smothers him. I like this detail, by the way, of soaking it in water.
Waterboarded
because
him.
yeah, and also this is a strange thing. You can't actually. I don't know why I know this, but I've asked people to try to do it to me, and I said I'll tap if I can't breathe. It's basically impossible to smother someone with a pillow. It's very, very difficult. If you have a loved one willing to do this, you just say I'll tap out if I can't breathe, and all you have to do is turn your head or just breathe slowly, and you can breathe through a pillow. So soaking whatever it is in water and smothering him to death because he would have recovered. Other thoughts, other things that come forward.
I'm getting Jesus wept premonitions when he was at the grave of Lazarus for some reason.
Well, I mean, I think it's very different because it's that he knows what this guy is going to do, and the guy hasn't admitted it. He's, oh, absolutely. I don't even know what you're talking about.
So here's the interesting thing. Most of the Jewish commentaries on this do not think that he smothered him. They read this as he was trying to cool him down from fever, but it didn't work. That's a very different reading.
That's a very different reading.
It's also interesting. Christians probably the dipping in water part doesn't say dip. It says it's the word for baptize. It's the word for dip, like eat bowl.
Yeah.
It's he baptized the pillow. Of course, that word doesn't have the same meanings in Hebrew, but it is sort of interesting. There's for the most part they seem to read it as like the blanket or like netting that he's putting on his body to cool him down from fever. There's only one that seems to read it as pillow, and I think that's that might be the why there's a difference here. So if you don't read it as pillow, like you're not going to smother someone with a blanket. Like that's not there's not the image you're going to get. And they actually do think he's trying to help him. The other way, but if you think he's going to kill him, then it's like God, God's condemned him anyway. I might as well, be the one who benefits from that. That would be the way to read that. Right?
Sorry, side note. This is a man who's going to be responsible for dashing to pieces little ones and ripping open pregnant women.
Right, but we just heard that he doesn't think he's capable of that violence. We just heard him say that.
Yeah.
Like, so if that was true.
No. If you remember Harry Potter, when Harry Potter is talking to the man who's preparing the wands, and they were talking about Voldemort, and they say the man is doing great things, evil things, but great things. And this is exactly what Chazal is saying. What am I, the dog, to doing those great things?
This is great. This is I really like the ambiguity of this. You got to pick. Yeah, you have to pick. Is he smothering him to death? It's just he sounds so violent that I was jumping to violence, not to the option of my mom used to do that, right? When you're overheating from a fever or whatever, and you put a cold compress on. You take a wet something to make you feel better, and he did this until he died. It didn't work. But a baby chopper, I think a baby chopper, yeah, I couldn't possibly do something like that. Maybe this is the beginning of him doing something like that.
I mean, if you're going to read it that way, the one might even say, and this is like a pretty dark reading, that Alicia telling him he's going to do bad things someday gives him some sort of psychological permission to start being bad. And like it was Alicia himself who put this idea in his mind that like that releases his violence. That's a really dark way to read it.
Yeah, like Hazael gets sort of possessed at that moment by that.
But that also would connect it with when the kingdom first splits. There's a man of God, or is it a prophet? I can't remember which one. It might even be the same language where being referred to as man of God cuts the garment into 12 pieces and says, take 10. And the guy who's about to do that is the one who's going to set up the golden calves. Which actually, so you could again take this as, yes, we know it's from God that the kingdom's going to split, but not the part where this guy does such evil and wickedness. It's still evil and wicked that he does this and going away from God, like quite literally a form of idolatry.
It's a good discussion to have Jess here for, because right, this is the discussion of whether bad things can come from God, and like minimally, even if you don't think that Hazael was trying to kill the king, or like that Alicia poisoned his mind, or some sort of whatever possession thing happens here. Even if you don't think any of that, even if you think he's trying to help the king, like clearly God is instructing like Hazael to lie, minimally, right? Like minimally, that's happening here. He's trying to trick the king for some reason. We can also build a whole other theory on like all these bad things, but like this is a good chapter for like sometimes God like is manipulating things by being deceptive and by being and like doing things that like people say like, oh, God can only do good and only tell the truth. Like, well, something funky is happening here then.
Right. Interesting.
How much of this passage is actually like, thus says Hashem, and how much of this is just Elisha kind of going rogue with the vision that he has? Like, how much agency does Elisha have in what he has said? Does the text distinguish like divine revelation from the words of Elisha?
So we don't actually have a separate like God said this. It's just the only time we hear what God said is through Elisha's mouth here. So we have to kind of take his word for it on like this is God's, so if you just look at that part, it says it doesn't actually tell him. That's interesting. Like it says that God showed me that he's definitely gonna die, and it says that God showed me that you would be king on Aram, and that you would do these things as king. Does it actually? And it does say Darashas Hashem. Yeah, so it's not so clear if God actually told Elisha to tell him that he's going to live, or that's something Elisha comes up with. That's an interesting point. I had missed that.
Could this entire episode be Elisha operating purely off of the fact that he knows Hazael's been anointed?
Yeah. Yep.
He's just like, as soon as he meets him and he's like, hey, my name's Hazael, he's just like, he just has this vision of like, oh, you're that guy.
Well, he doesn't even, first he can have the vision, but two, like, Elijah's already had this vision, right? Or Elijah's already done the anointing. Right. So, like, minimally, he would have heard of him from his teacher, one presumes, because, or even met him when he met his teacher, because that was on the same mission that he gets anointed at the same time, right, as this guy. They get anointed at the same time. So they might even know each other, have met before, which would be kind of crazy to think about.
I think I'm really compelled by the emotional moment in this as well, and I'm wondering if anyone wants to throw any interpretation on the idea that the prophet, after saying, I know what you're, like, says his first bit of prophecy and just stares until he's embarrassed and then starts crying. Like, that to me is a very poignant moment.
I think Hazael is the one who's staring, right? And it's the prophet.
I was going to ask who it was, because I was like, it's unclear in the English. I don't know how we would know who it's referring to.
It said, well, it's the prophet who definitely cries. That's clear. It seems the way I think that the first clause, it doesn't say exactly, like it doesn't say who's doing what, but it does seem that it's Chazael who is staring, the prophet who becomes embarrassed and then cries. As opposed to the prophet staring until Chazael's embarrassed and the prophet cries.
Yeah,
but it
that
is
that
weird.
that tracks with me because I think if he's staring at the prophet, he's seeing God's messenger, and nothing is changing in him. You know what I mean?
But what if this guy already believes he's going to be the one to take over, and so he's waiting for the king to die, and Elisha tells him, "Oh, he's not going to die, and when he does, you're going to be like he's not going to die of this sickness. When he does, you'll be the person to take over." And so the guy is doing the math in his head, where if he's waiting for the guy to die on his deathbed, he's not going to die on his deathbed. It's only going to be his deathbed if you step in and make it his deathbed.
Okay, Don is annoyed about the ambiguity of the text. That it's not clear about who's talking and who's staring and who's doing what. So I'm going to annoy her even further. The text is extremely unclear because in my Hebrew version, there is a correction for obvious grammatical mistake. It gives the text, but also gives what is well. Obviously, it's a misprint. Let me tell you how it should have been. So the original text, and Elisha said to him, "Go and say no, live you live." And the correction is go and tell him you will live you live.
Okay.
So it's not even clear whether he told him that he what is
correct.
actually not clear to me.
So we should talk about those corrections. So in the Hebrew, there are places sometimes in Hebrew that the rabbis have two different manuscripts in front of them, and they want to preserve both traditions. In this case, the word for him and the word for not are the same, or no are the same. They sound the same, but they're spelled slightly differently. They're both low. One is Lamed Vav and one is Lamed Aleph. And we have in the Hebrew text that it's written Lamed Aleph, low, as in no, but that you should read it, that the other manuscript tradition exists of Lamed Vav, of tell him. So the way we read it is generally like considered the more accurate. This is the opposite of what Yoav said, sort of. Like the one that's more accurate is the one that we actually read out loud, but the one that's written down preserves the other tradition of the manuscript here. So in this case, it could, but even if you say it's low, chayo yichya, it could be no, you shall live, as opposed to no, you will die. No, you won't live, right? You can read it both ways. So in some ways, the variant actually shows us that like the ambiguity that was there when it was a Lamed Aleph is clarified by this other tradition of Lamed Vav.
I'm just telling Dawn that she's correct in saying that it's very annoying and we cannot read actually anything from this text.
I love it. I love it. We come together basically knowing what the text says, and we talk about it until it becomes more and more ambiguous. Yoav is here to bring the gospel of ambiguity. He is a proselytizer for that case. He spreads it more than Claire spreads secular Quranism. That is his spiel. Okay. Any other thoughts on this passage? Matt, it sounds like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I kind of want to know why Elisha didn't treat Hazael coming to him as another potential Naaman, where he has the opportunity to create an ally inside of a foreign government that could potentially be friendly rather than, the cause of all of this like upsetting graphic imagery we just saw.
From what I know, and it's decidedly less than some of the people here, Naaman was willing and open and humble. These are traits of the partner, someone that you could partner with. and it seems like Hazael is absolutely none of those things.
I would
Where do you
disagree.
see none of those things? I don't think we have enough detail to make a
And
determination one way or
for-
the other.
I guess
and
by his action.
Naaman starts as super not humble. The whole process of what happens to him is to humble him, right? So if someone starts as not humble, like in theory, if Hazael's not humble, they could humble him, right?
Yeah, so maybe the stories are opposed in some ways, Matt.
I was thinking about Naaman at the beginning of the story because, like, okay, the king of Aram is sick. We know that last time when his chief, chief of staff or defense, secretary of war, or whatever you want to call him, like last time he was sick, like they had this whole story and they ended up going to the prophet. Like, is hearing about Naaman and his story and his healing, has that made the king want to reach out to Elisha? Like, why would he do that otherwise? Like, why is he reaching out to, like, why is this a thought in the king's court? I think it might be because Naaman exists and is there and they know his story and he's like, so I think that is a background part of this, of what's happening.
This is also like the fourth or the fifth time somebody on a deathbed has reached out to a prophet. I mean, we had the guy who fell through the window.
Lattice.
Jeroboam when his son was sick. It's kind of a frequent motif.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of death. 40 camel loads seems like a lot of stuff.
But it's again a story where you're trying to figure out about the bribing of the prophet or the man of God as well, where it's like it's difficult. Is it honoring or is it bribing? Right, like because you see certain things and you're like, I don't know if that was actually honoring to God. I think that.
What was the story where someone came
Feels
to
like
Elisha?
a
and he
modern
was like,
Western distinction. I feel like the line between those two categories is extremely blurry in like the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah, here, I mean, the Hebrew word used here is mincha v'yado v'chotu. This is what you're bringing a tribute. Like, this is the language that where the king, you send tribute to your ally type language.
Yeah.
It's also like what's used to appease an enemy. Like, so like they're enemies, right? So you use this like, so when Jacob wants to appease Esau, he sends him this sort of appeasement tribute, even though they're not kings. Like, this is the way that you kind of try to do
and
that.
does the bowing as he approaches. Yeah. Jess, what were you about to say?
I was just trying to remember. There was one time when Elisha was disrespectful, and it's when they were going to go fight Moab, and the king of Israel came to him, and Elisha says, "What do I have to do with you? Go to the prophets of your father and to the prophets of your mother." It's the son of Ahab and Jezebel. And then he says, "But since the king of Judah is with you, I'll help you out." And then that's when he says, "Bring me a musician," and all that. But I was just trying to remember because my instinct is I haven't read this story in a while. So when I got to the 40 loads of camels, I was like, he's going to just totally blow them off. He'll be like, "Why are you bringing me this stuff?" And he just accepted it and then, sought God and told him what to say.
And then that guy either tries to help the king get better or smothers him or waterboards him to death. Whichever one you prefer.
I mean, we also might just be seeing an evolution of Elisha here, right? So Elisha starts, with like saying, mocking the king of Israel and saying, "Go, why are you bothering with me? I'm not the religion that you believe in. Go to to your idolatry." Then we have the story almost immediately after that of Naaman, who is saying, "Why do I need to get healed in the waters of Israel? Like, I can just go to the waters of my own country. They're much better." And now here, like, he's not rejecting he's still not being directly, he's still not directly dealing with the person who's asking the question, but like there is this, he's not just rejecting them out of hand, right? He's become much more chill, maybe. He's like, okay, like I'm not gonna like blow up because you try to send me tribute, which is something he did with Naaman. I'm not gonna just like reject you out of hand, like, but he still rejects him, right? It's actually a rejection of like, but it's a little more a chiller rejection to some degree, I guess. Very, very little. But.
Okay, let's jump back in the text. I want to get to the end of at least this chapter. Kirk, wait, I'm trying to remember. Jess read last. Okay, Matt, you read, and then Kirk. Okay. Just
All
this
right.
this little section right there.
Okay, that paragraph there. All
Yeah.
right. In the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, when Jehoshaphat was king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done. For the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did what was evil in the sight of Hashem. Yet Hashem was not willing to destroy Judah for the sake of David his servant, since he promised to give a lamp to him and to his sons forever.
I mean, this seems like a point for Claire. Another guy also does a bad job. Married a bad woman and did accordingly.
Yes, there seems to be a definite pattern there.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Does anyone have anything else they want to throw in before we continue on? Okay, Kirk, read us this paragraph. Kirk? All right, I don't hear Kirk. So, Matt, how about you read us some more?
In his days, Edom revolted from the rule of Judah and set up a king of their own. Didn't they do this like 4 chapters ago? Then Joram passed over to Zair with all his chariots and rose by night. And he and his chariot commanders struck the Edomites who had surrounded him, but his army fled home. So Edom revolted from the rule of Judah to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. Now the rest of the acts of Joram and all that he did are then not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah. So Joram slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Ahaziah his son reigned in his place.
Okay, I actually really like a line like this, because this to me is getting into what the function of the book is. The book is not trying to be a complete explanation of everything. That's not what its intention is. It's trying to give an image of what how God is operating at this time, how God works within power, how systems fall apart and people rise up. It shows what these characters are like, and that would continue to this day. It sees this as a benefit. It doesn't need to get into all the nitty gritty. This is as much as it needs to talk about.
I mean, you say this is narrative, but this book, it ends with a sermon. Like there's one point after the exile where the narrator jumps in and is like, this is why all of this happened. The moral of the story.
That's good.
Are we at the end of Elisha?
No.
I'm paging through. Is there more coming?
The end of Elijah does not, like, it doesn't even end when he dies. Because after he dies, his bones do something.
Okay. I'm jumping ahead though. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know if Ian and Claire, if you guys want to read. There's people who show up normally and they read. Are
happy
either
to
of
do
you,
so.
You'd be happy to do so? Okay. Well then, Claire, could you read this paragraph for us, please?
In the 12th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah. She was a granddaughter of Omri, king of Israel. He also walked in the way of the house of Ahab and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done, for he was son-in-law to the house of Ahab.
Another point for Claire. You know what, Claire, finish us off. How about you finish us off for this chapter? Yeah, read that.
Thank you. He went with Joram, the son of Ahab, to make war against Hazael, king of Syria, at Ramoth Gilead. And the Syrians wounded Joram. And king of Joram returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds that the Syrians had given him at Ramah, where he fought against Hazael, king of Syria. And Ahaziah, the king of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel because he was sick.
Okay, so this seems like something Yoav wants to comment on, the visiting because of sickness. What do we got?
Did this ever happen that one king visited another because he was ill? Didn't happen before.
You gotta watch.
I mean, isn't that referring back to like the end of Eliyahu's life when the guy falls out the window? Isn't that Joram, the son of Ahab, or is that something different?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was Ahab's son that fell out the window.
Was he pushed?
You never can tell with kings, honestly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it seems like it's an accident.
Right.
Jezebel was definitely pushed.
It is. I will say this as well, Claire, related to your thesis, is it's trying to show the way that you get dynasties or sometimes sins of one person are not fully realized within their generation. And if you want to understand what's happening, you kind of have to look a generation back at decisions that people are making, and then you go, okay, this makes a lot more sense. So these kings that push against what God's will is, or they try to attract God's worship by setting up false sites and all these other things, you see these ripple effects of what happens when you do this. And so that kind of, instead of just looking at history as history, it looks at things as grand narrative.
Okay, my comment is that we see that there's some...
Yoav, you want to go first? We're going to say Yoav goes first, and then...
Yeah, you go first.
Then I think Joseph.
So we saw that the two kings, Israel and Judah, coming closer together, getting sort of marriage relationship, they're fighting wars together, and they are quite pressed. All their provinces are rebelling against them. I think the subject of discussion when the one king is ill and is about to die is perhaps this is the right time to reunify the kingdom.
Mm. Yeah, could this be the end of civil war? Could this? Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. As evil as these guys are, or like the text is warning us, these people have all these bad influences that they're marrying, and they have these influences of Achav and Omri and like all these names we've had in the past, and then like it will be, is this a hopeful thing that they're all going to unite, or like, but it's like undermining that as soon as it brings it in. What I was going to say though is that this scene is really important archaeologically because we have archaeology that tells us of this. So the Tel Dan Stela inscription is a monument set up by Hazael, king of Aram, where he talks about how, one, Hadad made him king. He says that explicitly in that monument. Two, he says how he killed Yoram, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, son of Yoram, king of Jerusalem, and of the house of David. And so the Tel Dan Stela is famous because it's the earliest datable inscription that mentions the house of David. But at the same, so like we know the house of David wasn't made up, like that wasn't invented like in the 5th century, because like we have.
It's also interesting because we can see that it's not referred to as Judah. You might want to refer to yourself as Judah, but the other people see it an extension of the kingdom of David, just the house of David.
Yeah,
right?
But this inscription, like, also it talks about Hazael being like, I conquered 70 kings and whatever. He has like a whole thing and slew thousands. And so he's like, it's pretty explicit about and happy about the fact that he killed lots of people and that he had a pretty significant conquest. And the thing that he really wants to call out among those conquests is his ability to conquer Jerusalem and Judah. So like, sorry, not Jerusalem and Judah, the Israel and Judah, the northern, Israel and the house of David. I should give David his due here, right? Okay, so those are the two kingdoms that he's very proud about conquering and killing the kings of. But like to me, this is like so cool because this scene is exactly like what we have in the archaeological record, and it's such like a clear and obvious one. It's a slightly different version because in that version, twice I think he mentions that how Hadad appointed him king. We don't actually hear that in the biblical text, right? Somehow he becomes king when either he kills or Hadad dies, whatever. We didn't know that he was supposed to be the next king. We're not even sure that that's true. The monument could be lying, and he could have made up that that this guy's deathbed wish was that he was king. Who knows? But like, yeah, like he thinks it's legitimate his kingship, or at least that's how he's going to portray it.
We are getting. This was a spring of nation time. A lot of nations have regained their national identity and their independence. Edom got their rebelled against Judah, and Moab tried and failed. But it is a time of spring of nation political unrest. And Syria is going to move into it, get the better of the region because of that.
Yeah, I mean, there is something interesting there too, politically, right, Yoav? Because here the two kingdoms are finally looking like they might unite, despite like maybe being morally corrupt. But that's only happening to some degree because they're losing power, right? So like they're being forced to unite because one, I mean, Edom has revolted and they're not coming back, right? Edom, for the rest of the Bible at least, till the book of Maccabees, is going to be an enemy of the Jewish people, and it's going to get a lot worse, as we see in the books of Obadiah and Ezekiel, right, where they seem to betray the Jews and ally with either the Babylonians or something. And now that's the revolt in the south. We have the Arameans in the north building their kingdom and getting stronger and stronger. The Philistines aren't going to necessarily get stronger too much, though the Phoenician cities will into this period once the Assyrians sort of realign them. So like this is a period where like they're being forced to work together more and perhaps and aligning themselves and becoming more assimilated to maybe idolatry, or I mean the culture of the Phoenicians, right? And that might be their lifeline here is the Phoenician kind of trade networks and stuff, as their enemies are to their northeast and their southeast get stronger. They're kind of being forced together. It's a weird picture. It's because, well, we'll see what happens. It's also, I wanted to know from a narrative level, not that the chapter breaks are like sacrosanct, they're sort of made up, but like there is something interesting in how this chapter was divided, where it starts with a sick king and it ends with a sick king. And like we just heard about this whole story about like what happened to the first sick king. So we have this kind of dramatic like tension at the end of this chapter where we're like, okay, well, what's going to happen with this next sick king? Because I think that's in part why this chapter break kind of works really well.
So it's the book of the sick kings.
Yeah.
Do you think part
That's
of like all the stories about the sick kings is sort of emphasizing their spiritual malady?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think that was true for the Naaman story too, right? And I think the sick kings stories immediately start by playing into that story. So we're supposed to be tying their physical and spiritual health together.
Oh, looks like Matt wants to say something about Naaman. I was just going to go back to that. I really love Yoav's point about the hope in change. Like, it seems very much the case that we experience that in America. Like, well, there's going to be an election soon. And during that election year, I'm so cynical about politics, but it's like, I'll get sucked in and be like, well, it actually seems like they're doing good things, you know. And then immediately following, when policy gets put into place, you're like, same problem as always. It's a human president, and so we suffer the consequences. But I was going to say about the Naaman story, like he was willing to be washed, and you asked, like, what do I see in this text that shows that Hazael is like not willing to partner with God? It seems to me like he just reminds me of Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. I don't know if anybody watched that, but he just has like whatever it is. It just seems like he's been given an immense amount of information in this moment from the man of God, and he knows. It's even strange the way that Elisha presents it. That he's like, this is what's going to happen, but this is what you should say, and they're not the same thing, and so it's like Elisha is not standing in the way of the corruption of Israel sort of bearing fruit in Hazael's reign or something like that, because I think that the kings are indicative of, like, they cause Israel to suffer, but they're also indicative of the corruption that is in Israel too.
I wonder if he stares at him because he thinks he just read his mail. Like, because he's like, how do you know? And then the man of God knows that that's the truth, and then weeps.
The Pharisees are always like super uncomfortable about Jesus reading their mail, right? Like in those stories, Jesus will say, why are you thinking that? And they're like, well, we were just thinking that. We didn't say anything.
I'm wondering, whenever there's a version of like the Bible on film, I know what I'm asking for is twice as much effort. I would love if we got to see the scene play out in multiple interpretations. Like we get to see the interpretation where this guy is actually super supporting the next king, and he wants to do what's right, and oh no, when he dies, he's going to take over. And I want to immediately then see the version where he smothers him to death with a pillow, and see which one seems more consistent with the overarching image of what's going on here.
I want a version with one scene that's completely ambiguous. It's purposely ambiguous.
So you want to read the book?
I think we could do this with AI.
Yeah,
probably could.
I want the scene to leave all the possibilities open.
Okay, let me just add some confusion about the 40 camels. The king tells Hazael, bring him a present. I don't know if the king meant 40 camels.
He doesn't say it.
I think, yeah, maybe one camel would have been enough. And what is the present for? Is it for information or is it for action? Because, okay, I'm lying at my sick. I'm lying sick. I really want to know if I die or not. But I'm going to find out quite soon. Okay, so I'm willing to pay something for it, but not 40 camels. For 40 camels, I'll just wait another day. I think it is clear that everybody thinks that the man of God has the power to change politics. And these are not Jews. This is the kings of Aram and Hazael. Unlike Naaman, they don't believe in this God. They know that one way or another, this man has the political power. And again,
yeah.
In the Game of Thrones,
but people nod to these other forms of power, and they want their influence to be total, right?
Yeah.
Just because Yanni's over here, like Jeffrey Epstein met with the Pope, right? Like, I don't think he was Catholic, right? Like, you can see the way that the Pope is used by different political figures as like it'd be nice if you got a good word from the Pope, kind of a thing, right? Like, you use these other figures, and for people, especially people who are polytheistic, you're like, what harm will it do? Light a little incense to him, a little incense to them, right? Like, we can see this when we find people's altars in certain areas, is where they have different people that overlap. They're like, yes, pray to God, but also, see if Athena will help too. See how that goes.
We had this discussion. The king of Syria already had the council, and he's asking his people, where do those Israelis know what they know? How come they're reading the intercepting their communications? And he was suspecting just plain spy work. And everybody around him, no, this is real magic. Because they will not have called it anything but magic because they are not Jews. I don't think that the king of...
There are prophets in the courts of Aram.
Okay, yeah, but they don't think that Elisha is any extra holy in a holy sense.
Just any other prophet, yeah.
Yeah. So calling him a magician will not be a misnomer in their eyes.
I have a thought.
Oh, okay.
Elisha's message is going to harm his reputation, because he says you're going to say he's going to recover, but God has shown me that he's going to die. So this means, officially, Elisha will have said he's going to recover, but then, in fact, the guy is going to die, and this is not going to be good for his reputation as a...
See, that would make sense if the guy is murdered. Because if it is, he's going to recover, and then the guy murders him, then what the prophet said is true. Right?
Yeah, it's this weird thing, like Hazael, he may be wanting to, whatever message he got from Elisha, he was going to say that you will recover. I'm just trying to think of there's this weird inversion thing that could be, I don't know, a part of it. Maybe I'm trying to look too deep.
Okay,
it's very Jonah. The story is very Jonah-esque, right? This is a very much like Jonah, especially the way that we read Jonah into history, whereas Jonah doesn't want to go to Nineveh because Nineveh is going to destroy Israel in the next generation. This is a lot like that, where I don't want to tell the guy I'm going to that he's going to live and destroy Israel and do all these bad things, but that is my role. And at the same time, there's this reticence, and it is this weird inversion of do you fulfill the prophecy even if it means that you're discredited as a prophet, right? And that's what Jonah's worried about too, right? Jonah's worried about he predicted Nineveh was going to be destroyed, and no one's going to believe he's a good prophet if then they repent and aren't destroyed. So I think there's a lot of intertextual parallel here happening. I think Jonah's about to be mentioned, I think, in a chapter or two. So is it right after Elisha? So I'm pretty sure these are thematically connected. I also just say there's another little bit of interesting evidence of a literary clue here, which is we've had, I know here in your translation, David, it translated it until he was embarrassed, but we've had that phrase before. Mm-hmm. It's a super rare phrase, ad bush. It only happens 3 times in all of the Bible. Twice of them are in Elisha's 2 of them are Elisha stories. The first time we had it pre-Elisha was when the king was killed in the bathroom, and they're waiting for him. So ad bush really just kind of means an embarrassing delay. They've been waiting him so long. It's something, they're sort of embarrassed in his bed, right? So they go and they find out he's been murdered on the toilet, right? I know it's a favorite story of yours, David. So that's the first time. But the other time we've had this was in an Elisha story. It was in chapter 2 or 3 where the sons of the prophets keep coming to Elisha and say we should look for Elijah, and he says no, and they keep pestering him until he says fine, go look for him, but you're not gonna find him in the valleys or on the mountaintops. And they look for 3 days, right? So we've had this phrase before, and I think this helps maybe clarify the ambiguity of who is the one who kind of gets outweighted or embarrassed or whatever. It seems to be Elisha, because it was Elisha in both stories, perhaps. But then we have to ask. It is weird. I think the problem of him being the one who's embarrassed, and that Hazael is the one who stares at him until he's embarrassed, or until he's it's such a long wait. It's embarrassed is the wrong word. Awkward. When someone's just an awkward silence, you're just waiting there awkwardly. I think that's probably closer to this feel of like just like giving in because it's so awkward. And he breaks down crying.
As we're talking about different like really getting into the nitty gritty, I wonder about if it doesn't say this in the text, but what if the guy already knows what he's going to do and what his plans are, and it's a say the other part, right? Like he says, yeah, it says he's going to recover, and the guy just stares at him and just gives like a
Well, especially if he's already been anointed, right? Like Hazael's already been anointed. He knows he's going to be king. Like one way to read the entire gift thing is backwards, right? And so the other way to read it is like the king says, "Hey, you know, the normal thing, bring him a sheep or a goat or a camel, like one camel, you know, because that's what we do for prophets." But Hazael brings him like a lot more than the king asked, perhaps, because Hazael wants a prophecy in his favor against the king. Right? That's another way to read it. Like he already knows he's supposed to be anointed, and like he can outbid the king on the prophecy. If you, depending on if you think they're real prophecies or like if they're just something the guy's making up, it gives you legitimacy. So he might be trying to get like, tell me that tell me that he's gonna die. Tell me, that I'm the new king. Whatever.
Why am I here? The guy says why he's here, and then says, "No, why am I really here?"
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Okay," and then it goes the layer deeper where it gets into the darkness of what is going to happen with this guy.
It's also like the "why are you crying" is weird, right? If I stood in front of you and made it super awkward silence, we weren't talking, and you started crying, like the tone and phrase, like I do wonder, like what does that sound like when I ask you, like, okay, we just sat here in silence for however long until it got super awkward and you started crying. Like that sounds like a super sympathetic type of question, but there's also like a very other way to read that, which is like sort of an aggressive, like, why are you crying? Come on, like, whatever.
Like, don't be a baby. Say it.
Don't be a baby.
Tell me what I'm going to do.
So Elisha got 40 camels full of the best goods of Damascus. What did he do with the goods? I mean, he didn't eat it all by himself. So I learned that Elijah has an organization. He has somebody to hand the camels to and disperse the goods. And you say, well, this is the man of God. He surely have given all the goods to orphans and widows. Maybe. It still means that Elijah has an organization. And we know about the sons of prophets that there are so many that he needs to build a new house for them. So we're talking about a person that has political power. In the eyes of the king of Syria, he has magical power. And he realizes that his life is in the hands of this person. After everything that happens in before the chapter, the chapter before. And what do you do if you want to assassinate him? In such a case, well, he's suspecting already. He knows that you have the power, the political power, by one way or another. And you're going to kill him. What are you going to do? Again, it's the mafia way. You tell him, look how the godfathers were killing his family members when he had to. You sit with them and they said, everything is all right. You're a family member. Last thing I'm going to do is kill you. And then you kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, I kind of have to get going. I got to get back to work. So let's go for some last words on it. This was a fun one. I'm going to go bottom to top. So I'll go Jess first.
All right. Well, I really like what Yoav was saying. I think there's, but I think in response, I think Elisha is playing against that. He doesn't think of himself as a magician or someone with political power. And so when he says, you will say to him, you will recover, but the Lord has shown me that he's going to die, he's saying something to Hazael that's like, because I'm trying to think of like what the correct like political power move would be to do. I don't think it's what Elisha did. I think Elisha is playing like he really is. He's at least really concerned about Israel, and this is why he weeps. Is because when Hazael stares at him, he sees everything that's going to happen, and I see I see a humility in Elisha in his response there that's pretty profound. That's sort of like there to show Hazael what is true, but also in his response say he will recover. It discredits himself publicly in a way that's I don't know. It's very interesting.
Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
Cool Kid Kirk.
Hello.
Hello?
Speak to us.
No, we hear nothing from you, Kirk. No. Well,
Sorry.
we tried. We gave him the option to speak. Yosef. Anything?
Yeah. No, I've talked enough. I love this chapter. It's really cool. I think I don't remember the Chronicles version. I want to go back and like double check. I feel like we're probably missing some key things on the wars with Edom and stuff. And Livna, the other place that rebels, that's a Judahite city. So we didn't even talk about that. But there's also like internal rebellion happening probably here that like is a whole other bit of this. But yeah, anyway, it's awesome. It was a fun conversation, guys.
Thank you. Ian.
Yeah, I think just to highlight the sickness and the ways that all of the politics in the area are sort of like mirroring each other. It seemed like even though Aram is not Israel and Israel's not Aram, they're similar, and that's sort of they're being painted in similar ways so that you can see like this guy might be like a really bad guy that causes you to suffer a lot, but there's also some similarities with you guys and the way that you're moving. And so I also just want to say thanks for having me and allowing me to participate in what was an A+ Bible study. I enjoyed
Awesome.
it.
Thank you, Ian. You're always invited back. Claire, do you have any thoughts? Anything you want to share?
Yes, thank you for being so welcoming. And I suppose my takeaway point from the Book of Kings is that God cannot be a monarchist and must therefore support a constitutional republic. And he has sent a book of rules for us to do this sort of thing that supports the First Amendment. And we should go with it if we want an orderly transfer of power and not and keep the American Republic without going back to monarchy or absolute dictatorship, and this is an ancient moral lesson that I hope people in the 21st century will heed about the corruption and violence of people who fight to be king. Thank you.
Awesome. Claire, this was good. You are continued to be invited back for this. Also, take a look at both the character of Elijah and Elisha. They do appear in the Quran, and it does seem to be that it's referencing as though you already know the stories of these prophets. So even just keep that in mind as we go through it. Like I think that there's I think you'll continue to find it interesting.
Yes, I think the Quran basically, tells its own version, with slight variation of the Old Testament stories.
I disagree. I think it implies that you already know them. It implies you already know them. From a
Yes, it
separate source.
refers to the previous prophets, including Mary and Jesus, and and has his own view about that. I guess it's a kind of synthesis of Judaism and Christianity. Yeah.
Okay, Matt.
Drawn back to the beginning of the chapter, I'm just really kind of struck by two different modes of providence here, because you have like the story of the lady who has her land restored, and it's like there's no revelation. You have this story of a lot of kind of like reunions and happy endings, which is all attributed to divine providence. And this story is also about the providential guiding of history. And once you add in verbal interventions, just things get a whole lot more complicated, because the verbal messages of the future affect the present as they're playing out and affect the characters on the field. It's just complicated.
Yeah, that's good. And as you were saying, I just remembered that all these things related to famines and difficulty, and it's again, all these things are the warnings that are set in Deuteronomy. After Claire made the comment about needing rules and all this other stuff, people started talking about it. And what Joseph is saying is very true, is that you need a set of rules that help you understand. That gives you the structure to understand some of these stories, why the famine comes, why all those issues arise. Yoav, my friend.
I have a strong suspicion that the prophets knew this unfortunate chain of events at the time that Elijah left. This is what they kept saying: don't talk about it, don't talk about it. This is what you shouldn't be talking about. And I think Eliyahu had a mission to Israel. And the minute that Eliyahu left is the declaration of the failure of the mission of Eliyahu to Israel. And at that moment of declaration of failure, everything is unfolding to anybody who knew. And God is trying one nation by another. As Chezi always says, God started with Egypt. And then he continued with the kingdom of Judea. And then he was trying with Israel. And now he's going to give the crown to Syria. And when Syria fails, he's going to move it on to Assyria. And then it's going to land at the end of the Bible with Persia.
Thank you for that. This is very interesting. Well, just so everyone, Claire heard this earlier, but I'll say this to everyone. I've begun praying much more regularly and much more focused, including on the people that come out to Bible study. So Claire, that's great. You get prayed for twice.
Thank you.
So I wish for everyone that you seek after God, see him a little bit more clearly through these stories, which are stories which do not merely illuminate who God is to us, but also what sin is and how to move away in a way that's bad. So hopefully as we continue coming here, we're trying to move our faces towards God in a move of repentance. So thanks for coming out. We'll see you guys next week, okay?
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. Bye.